What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Doc and Dog presented by the Fantasy Mafia. And this is the second installment of our second base mini series where we are reviewing our top 20 second basemen. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the top 10. So we have your top 10 second basemen today. My name is Jordan Jaika, aka Dr. Fantasy, and I am here with my co host Rydawg, and we will jump right into it. Well, before I do, make sure you like the Fantasy Mafia on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, lots of great content going up on there, and make sure that you check out all of our articles on thefantasymafia.com. And now let's jump into the top 10 second baseman. Number
Oh,
10 today, we have Mike Moustakas of the Cincinnati Reds. Now I had to think about that for a second. Last season, he batted 254, had 80 runs scored, 35 home runs, 87 RBIs, 3 stolen bases. And we'll have him and Muncy back to back here. And, I think one of the reasons that I have them below the other top guys is just because they don't offer as much upside in other position categories. Really, their power and run production. And that's pretty much it. Not very high averages. I think Moustakas can hit a little higher than he did last season, but not as much, not a great average. They don't steal a ton of bases, so they're really three category guys. Nothing wrong with that, but I can't really put them ahead of any of the other guys, the top players, just because of that. And I know you like Moustakas, so I'll let you talk a little bit about what you love about the Moose.
I love the Moose. I mean, he's always been consistent throughout the years. Um, I like that he's finally on a team that's actually worth a shit. So, I mean, that's helpful. I mean, he's got a very good offense around him. He's a 30 home run guy, 90 RBI potential. He's good. He's gonna be a good second base. He's not one of the elite studs that can offer average steals, but he's not one of the worst guys. He's a good starting second baseman that you could have on your team if you missed out on the first five guys.
Yeah. And not to mention, he is on the greatest team on paper.
On paper, woohoo!
Number 9, and I already mentioned his name, Max Muncy of the Dodgers. Only you and I both have him a few spots higher than Moustakas. Last
Right.
season, he batted 251, 101 runs scored, 35 home runs, 98 RBIs, and 4 steals. And to me, when you look at their statistical differences last year, 21 more runs scored over Moustakas and 11 more RBIs. And to me, that's just a product of the lineup around him. And that's the reason that I rank Muncy slightly higher than Moustakas, just because of the Dodgers lineup. But I think they're actually pretty similar players. It's just production's going to be higher because of the lineup around Muncy.
Yeah, and they're both very high-powered offense, but obviously, any offense that has Betts and Bellinger, that offense has more leeway. So, I mean, they're the same player. In my opinion, I think that I like Moustakas better as a player, but Muncy's in a better situation.
Yep, definitely. Number 8 is Whit Merrifield of the Royals. Last season, he batted 302, scored 105 runs, 16 home runs, 74 RBIs, and 20 steals. Currently has an ADP 43, so we're starting to go into the top 8 guys here whose ADP all kind of float around that 40 to 55 range. So there's a lot of debate here, and you see a run of second baseman in that round of the draft. Whit Merrifield, I think, may be higher if he wasn't with the Royals' terrible offense. But you kind of know what you're getting from him. He's still going to score 100 runs batting leadoff there. He's close to a 2020 guy, solid average. I don't have much to say about him. He's a pretty consistent producer. You kind of know what you're getting from him. I personally don't love Merrifield over any of these other guys just because I like the upside. I always take upside over consistency, and I know a lot of people will debate that to the end, but I really think that upside wins you championship. And as much as Merrifield is solid, I think his upside's kind of capped in that lineup.
Yeah, and I would agree. He doesn't have much help around him, but he's definitely held his own. He's a 300 hitter. He is what he is. He's consistent, and I like Whit Merrifield. I just wish he had a better team around him where he could drive in more runs.
Yep, I would agree with that. I mixed my numbers up here. Number 7 is Jonathan VR. And yes, I guess I
Yes.
have to say that name.
Yep.
Last season, he batted 274 with 111 runs scored, which led all people that were eligible for second base. 24 home runs, 73 RBIs, 40 steals. We've talked about him quite a few times because of our boy Zach, who and his
Yeah.
love
The
for him.
caveman.
But yeah, to me, VR and Merrifield are very similar, just not great situations. The difference for me is VR is a 40 stolen base guy. He hit 8 more home runs in Merrifield, but we've talked about it before. I expect VR's power production to come down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's really the difference. I think they're very similar players in similar situations. It's just VR offers more stolen base upside.
Yeah, and I would say the Marlins team is worse than the Royals. But I mean, VR hold his own. We're in a shitty Orioles team, but
Yeah.
we talked about the ballpark being bigger in Miami than it is in Baltimore. So we'll see what happens. But I do like VR. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll be able to hold his own regardless there.
Yep. And then at number 6 here, we have your boy, DJ LeMahieu. I actually have him ranked higher than you, so I just have
Oh,
to note that. I
oh
like
wow.
LeMahieu as well. So,
Yeah,
I like my average guys. So
of course,
he's
of course.
he batted 327 last year, so obviously he has that ability.
Yeah,
109 runs scored, 26 home runs, 102 RBIs, 5 stolen bases. Everything that he does, and the reason that I love him even more when I look at his advanced metrics, everything is elite except his speed. He's not the fastest guy, but even
no,
if you look at him defensively, even his defensive metrics, if you count fielding percentage in your leagues, everything this guy does is elite. So I have I really can't say anything bad about him. He's in a good ballpark. He's in a great lineup. He hits for a high average. I think he can still hit more home runs, which might sound crazy to say out loud. I
yeah,
think he could hit 30. If he scores 110 runs, you're not getting steal production, but he's elite in 4 categories.
yeah. When he left Colorado 2 years ago in 2018 or 2018 off season, people thought he was going to drop down. Man, I'll tell you what, Doc, man, I creamed
Hmm.
my pants every time I got that value because you can't teach someone to be a 300 hitter. You really can't. You either
No.
have that ability to swing the bat and make contact like that or you don't. And you can teach someone to build muscle and hit for more power. You really can. So, LeMahieu, he is what he is. All around stud. For the ADP worth out of the top 6 second basemen, I like his ADP value the
Yeah.
best. And he is just a guy he's just fun to watch. He's an in-your-face hitter, and he proves what he does on the field, and he's always healthy for the most part. So I can't wait to draft him in other leagues again this year as well.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the ADPs of the top guys here, and LeMahieu's currently 59. VR is 62, but we have LeMahieu here at 6. The
Mm-hmm.
other top 5 guys are, roughly 10 picks or so above him. So he
Yeah,
offers, if you don't like any of those guys or you miss out on him, he offers nice value.
for sure. He does everything that the next guys do too. These top 6 guys are all very similar. People just
Yep.
like the youth a little bit, and I like youth too. But if I'm gonna get the same production and redraft and at 10 picks later, I'm gonna go with the 10 picks later.
Yep, for sure. Number 5 is Jose Altuve. You have him number 3 overall, which is pretty normal. I have him 6, so a little lower. His current ADP is 32, which I was a little surprised at. He's currently going as the second baseman off the board. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I thought with the scandal that would drop him a little more, but it really hasn't. He's batted 298 last season, 89 runs scored, 31 home runs, 74 RBIs, 6 stolen bases. I don't have him ranked lower because of the scandal. It's just once again, I think there's younger guys with more upside. You know what you're getting with Altuve. He's been very consistent for, the past 5 or so seasons now. So I just like taking chances. I'm a little more aggressive when I draft. I'll take LBs, and not to mention those guys are going 10 picks later.
Yeah.
I'll take Albies, Torres, Marte, Hura. I'll even probably, I mean, I have or LeMahieu ranked above him. I mean, I just like the upside more of those guys, and not that Altuve is not a great second baseman. I just think his upside's kind of capped by the kind of player that he is. I mean, he's in a great lineup, but you know that you're going to get a guy that bats around 300, scores right around 90 to 100 runs, and he's not going to have a ton of runs driven in because of where he bats in the lineup. But I think Altuve is what he is.
Yeah, and I mean, it came down to me between the Yankees and the Astros. They're both great lineups, best lineups in AL. Problem with that is the Yankees lineup has always seemed to be injured. There's always Stanton hurt. There's always Judge hurt. There's always Sanchez hurt. But with the Astros, I mean, they're cheaters, but I mean, most of those guys stay healthy. So I mean, it came down to me. I mean, like I'm going to take the health over the non-healthy. But I mean, I don't like Altuve, but I mean he's talented nonetheless, and I mean he's gonna put up his numbers, and he's just too consistent, and all the guys around him are very consistent as well.
Yep. Number 4 is Keston Hiura. I've been practicing saying his name because you and I went back and forth, and I don't think either one of us really knew. So I listened to a few broadcasts. I think I got it, but maybe a few more seasons, and I'll get it down even better. Hiura, yeah. Hiura, yeah.
God damn it.
Go on YouTube and listen to it. Yeah, it's hard because I mean you were saying Hirua and I was saying Hiura. It's really I remember I listened to one broadcast and I said there's no way that's how you say it. Then I listened to another one from a different network and they said Hiura and I'm like, okay. And then it kept going and I'm like, I guess that's how you say it then.
Yeah, I guess that's where we're going with Hiura. So I guess I'll start this off since I'm talking. I like Hiura. I mean, he's a good player, but I mean that Brewers lineup kind of scares me. I wanted to put LeMahieu and Altuve above him actually, but I just think there's just much more to him than what the lineup around him can offer, and he can just hold his own. He's very solid. He's just an all around young great kid. He's gonna do wonders in the majors.
Yeah, and I've been on the fence about him really the whole off season. So I'll quickly go over his numbers last year. He only had 314 at bats, but he batted 303, 51 runs scored, 19 home runs, 49 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. He had very high offensive production in the minors as well, so it's really not fluky. And I've talked about it with other young players. I mean, it's just still he has a very high whiff rate and a high K percentage, which is normal. But his are elevated to a point where you start to kind of turn your head and go, okay, if pitchers adjust to him the right way, I think that you could see him go through some struggles this season. And that's not to say he's not going to have a fantastic career. And I think that over the next 10 years, you're looking at a top 5 second baseman. But I think that as a young player, it's only going to be a second season. I just think you're going to see a lot of ups and downs with him. And
you are.
I think when it's all said and done in year 3, that's where I could really see him breaking through once he has, we'll say, they say a lot when you look at advanced metrics that players start to settle in around 750 at bats, which if you gave him another full season, that's where we'd be at. So I would really have him as a huge breakout candidate the year after that, but I just need another season and as a fantasy player, I don't want to deal with the inconsistencies. As much talent as he has, I'll wait for him to perform at peak level.
Yeah, I agree. And you make a very interesting point. The pitchers start to figure you out as they see you more, And, it almost cut you off. I apologize for that, Doc, but I was going to agree with you, How dare me. But, yeah, I mean, it's very true, second year, sophomore slumps. It's as real as it gets, and that's any sport, I believe. So, once pitchers start to figure him out, then he'll readjust. And I would agree, year 3, that's where you start to see him come back, to come back or have his best years. And you're like, all right, I'll take him then.
Yeah, and I think best case scenario is that he has a down, and I'll say for the draft after this, best case scenario for me is he has a really inconsistent season and people forget how talented he is. And then year 3, his ADP dips and you get great value on him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for sure.
Let's see. So we are into our, I forgot where we are. We're in our top three now.
Oh,
With Ketel Marte. Um, he last season had some huge numbers, and he's been a major player of debate for a lot of people in the fantasy baseball community as far as whether last season was fluky or not. He batted 329 last year, 97 runs scored, 32 home runs, 92 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. When you look at his advanced metrics and his hard hit percentages, I mean, everything that he does is elite. Some people will point to his BABIP, which may show he was a little lucky. But when you look at what his expected batting average was, advanced metric wise, I mean, it was still in the 320s. So, I mean, that's still an elite rate. I think that he can be a three, and he's always shown offensive promise. People have always said, he's the kind of guy, oh, if he can only put it together. And I mean, I think that he put it together, in my opinion. And I think he is a 300 hitter. I think he can hit 30 plus home runs, drive in 100 runs. We've already mentioned that lineup is better. Steal 10 to 15 bases, score over 100 runs. And I think he's the underdog candidate to me to be the number one fantasy second baseman this year. And I'll go out there and say I don't think it was fluky.
I don't think it was fluky either. He's always had the ability. People are just waiting for it to, happen, and then it happened, and then people are starting to run out of excuses. And now, he's like, what else do I need to do to prove myself? So, I mean, I think he's going to be a very good second baseman, and I would also second that when you said he's an underdog, top first overall second baseman. I would agree. Number one overall, I could see it.
Yep. And just for the record, you had him fifth, I had him third, so pretty close. Both have him as a
Yeah.
top five guy. I think based on the ADP that I saw, he's going right around the fifth or sixth right now. So ADP of 48 overall. And I would say I think he has that upside, but I'm not going to go out there and say that's value.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marte, it's
It's
not
not.
value. I think it's fair for him because as much that I really like him, and he's a guy that I would probably take at the ADP if he was right around 48 to 55. He does offer a lot of risk as well, so I don't necessarily think it's great value, but I might be a little aggressive and try to pick him up.
I would agree. Yeah.
Then we have our top two dogs here. Number two was Gleyber Torres from the. Actually, they're tied. I didn't notice that our average was tied because I have LB's number one, you have him two, and I have Torres two, you have him one. So we have them flip flopped. So technically, they're tied for the top spot. So we'll start off with Torres, and he batted 278 last year, 96 runs scored, 38 home runs, 90 RBIs, five stolen bases. Currently going pick 25 overall, so he's the top second baseman coming off the board. Kind of interesting to me. I mean, that's a very high ADP. Some of his metrics kind of pointed to he's another guy with a high whiff rate. I'm confident enough with what I've seen with him that he'll be fine and he'll be able to overcome that. You also have to remember in today's game, a lot of people have high whiff rates. I mean,
He
that's
really
just how the
do.
game's played now. Everybody strikes out and hits a lot of home runs. So, it's not as much of a concern. There starts to become a level where you kind of tilt your head and go, okay, that's a little too high. But Torres hasn't quite gone into that level yet. Um, I wrote an article about him a few months ago now where I said he was a candidate to be the number one overall second baseman when it was all said and done. But he has a great lineup. He has 40 home run potential in a full season. And he's still really young. I think he's only 22 or 23 still. And I foresee him he's kind of at that range now where he's had over 750 at bats. We kind of saw he was at last year, and I think he has the ability to build on that.
I'd agree. And, Torres is a very young, promising kid who hit 38 home runs last year. So power's there. The average is there. He's a guy that could be, the four category guy minus stolen bases. So, he's got everything in the making. And I think he's only going to get better from here.
Yep. And number one is Albies from the Braves. Like I said, they're tied, so you could flip flop them if that makes you feel better. Stats last year 295, 102 runs scored, 24 home runs, 86 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. I kind of went back and forth on this one between him and Torres. I mean, I like both of them a lot. If we were drafting, I prefer LB's value because it's 40th overall, so 15 whole picks later than Torres. And to me, it's a toss-up, so I'll take the guy that's going 15 picks later. But
Yeah.
the only thing, he batted about 20 points higher, his batting average, that is. Their runs scored are very similar. Torres has more home run potential. Their RBIs were within a few of each other. One of the differentiating factors for me is he stole 10 more bases, and I think that LB's can probably steal a few more. I think he's a 2020 candidate. So when it's all said and done, I'll take the guy with a higher average, ADP more reasonable, and more steal production, just because that's a tiebreaker. Torres has the home run advantage, but we've mentioned it a million times. There's a lot of guys that hit home runs, so that
Yeah.
doesn't do it for me. I'm more looking for that speed and average potential.
Yeah, and I kind of put when I did it, I had them neck and neck myself, and I'm like, what's the difference maker? I knew Albies had the speed, but I knew Torres has the better lineup around him. So I
Yeah.
kind of used that more into a factor. I mean, you can make the case, and we could sit here and hold our dicks and argue all day. You know what I mean? But I mean, you can't go wrong with either
Well, now
guy.
that you mention it,
But Albies does have better value. I mean, but I'm the ADP kind of sucks for Torres though because I do think he's the better second baseman, but I couldn't see myself spending a top 25 pick on a second baseman at the same time either. So, but
yeah.
I do think he is the better player. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Torres is overall going to be the better player too. We're also going to be spoiled too. He will most likely not be second base eligible after this season because he's
Too
primarily
fair.
playing short for the Yankees. So next year
Yeah.
won't even be a debate.
Yep. DJ may he'll move into the top three.
I think he'd be the top one.
Woohoo! Hell yeah!
That's after a crazy hot campaign and he hits 40 home runs in a 50 game
Woo!
season.
And a 350 batting average.
Crazier things could happen. So yeah, I mean that's all that we have for this. That was our top 10 second baseman. Any final comments you want to make on the second base position as a whole?
No, I'm all set.
Yeah, I mean I think just to wrap it all up, there's some young guys that are kind of intriguing that we talked about in the first episode with Gurriel, Lux, Edmund, Biggio, Newman, Arez. You know, just some younger guys that kind of interesting. So I think it's a deeper position than people realize, but still one of the more shallow as far as position players or positions go. So I overall I think there's a lot of value to be had here. I just wanted to say the word value, so I had to throw that in
Value,
there.
value.
But yeah, I think that's all we have. So we appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Doc and Dog. Make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Mafia YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook and check out thefantasymafia.com. So we appreciate you guys listening or watching, and peace out.
Peace out.